Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. This morning, we'll be in Genesis chapter 13, verse 5, through chapter 15, verse 21. Now Lot, who was traveling with Abram, also had flocks, herds, and tents. But the land could not support them while they were living side by side because their possessions were so great. They were not able to live alongside one another, so there were quarrels between Abram's herdsmen and Lot's herdsmen. Now the Canaanites and the Perizzites were living in the land at that time. Abram said to Lot, "Let there be no quarreling between me and you, and between my herdsmen and your herdsmen, for we are close relatives. Is not the whole land before you? Separate yourself now from me. If you go to the left, then I'll go to the right. But if you go to the right, then I'll go to the left." Lot looked up and saw the whole region of the Jordan. He noticed that all of it was well watered before the Lord obliterated Sodom and Gomorrah, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, all the way to Zoar. Lot chose for himself the whole region of the Jordan and traveled toward the east, so the relatives were separated from each other. Abram settled in the land of Canaan, but Lot settled among the cities of the Jordan plain and pitched his tents next to Sodom. Now the people of Sodom were extremely wicked rebels against the Lord. After Lot had departed, the Lord said to Abram, "Look, from the place where you stand to the north, south, east, and west, I will give all the land that you see to you and your descendants forever, and I will make your descendants like the dust of the earth, so that if anyone is able to count the dust of the earth, then your descendants also can be counted. Get up and walk throughout the land, for I will give it to you." So Abram moved his tents and went to live by the oaks of Mamre in Hebron, and he built an altar to the Lord there. At that time, Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of nations, went to war against Bera, king of Sodom, Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, Shemeber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zor. These last 5 kings joined forces in the valley of Siddim, that is the Salt Sea. For 12 years they had served Chedorlaomer, but in the 13th year they rebelled. In the 14th year, Chedorlaomer and the kings who were his allies came and defeated the Rephaites in Ashtaroth-Karnaim, the Zuzites in Ham, the Emites in Shaveh-Kiriathaim, and the Horites in the hill country of Seir, as far as El Paran, which is near the desert. Then they attacked En-Mishpat, that is Kadesh, again, and they conquered all the territory of the Amalekites, as well as the Amorites, who were living in Hazazon-Tamar. Then the king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zor, went out and prepared for battle. In the valley of Siddim they met. Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, Tidal, king of nations, Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Eleasar, 4 kings fought against 5. Now the valley of Siddim was full of tar pits. When the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, they fell into them, but some survivors fled to the hills. The 4 victorious kings took all the possessions and food of Sodom and Gomorrah and left. They also took Abram's nephew Lot and his possessions when they left, for Lot was living in Sodom. A fugitive came and told Abram, the Hebrew. Now Abram was living by the oaks of Mamre, the Amorite, the brother of Eshcol and Aner. All these were allied by treaty with Abram. When Abram heard that his nephew had been taken captive, he mobilized his 318 trained men who had been born in his household, and he pursued the invaders as far as Dan. Then during the night, Abram divided his forces against them and defeated them. He chased them as far as Hobah, which is north of Damascus. He retrieved all the stolen property. He also brought back his nephew Lot and his possessions, as well as the women and the rest of the people. After Abram returned from defeating Chedorlaomer and the kings who were with him, the king of Sodom went out to meet Abram in the valley of Shaveh, known as the King's Valley. Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. Now he was the priest of the Most High God. He blessed Abram, saying, "Blessed be Abram by the Most High God, creator of heaven and earth. Worthy of praise is the Most High God, who delivered your enemies into your hand." Abram gave Melchizedek 1/10 of everything. Then the king of Sodom said to Abram, "Give me the people and take the possessions for yourself." But Abram replied to the king of Sodom, "I raise my hand to the Lord, the Most High God, creator of heaven and earth, and vow that I will take nothing belonging to you, not even a thread or the strap of a sandal. That way you can never say, 'It is I who made Abram rich.' I will take nothing except compensation for what the young men have eaten. As for the share of the men who went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, let them take their share." After these things, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. "Fear not, Abram, I am your shield, and the one who will reward you in great abundance." But Abram said, "O sovereign Lord, what will you give me, since I continue to be childless, and my heir is Eliezer of Damascus?" Abram added, "Since you have not given me a descendant, then look, one born in my house will be my heir." But look, the word of the Lord came to him, "This man will not be your heir, but instead a son who comes from your own body will be your heir." The Lord took him outside and said, "Gaze into the sky and count the stars, if you are able to count them." Then he said to them, "So will your descendants be." Abram believed the Lord, and the Lord considered his response of faith as proof of genuine loyalty. The Lord said to him, "I am the Lord who brought you out from Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to possess." But Abram said, "O sovereign Lord, by what can I know that I am to possess it?" The Lord said to him, "Take for me a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon." So Abram took all these for him, and then cut them in two, and placed each half opposite the other. But he did not cut the birds in half. When birds of prey came down on the carcasses, Abram drove them away. When the sun went down, Abram fell sound asleep, and great terror overwhelmed him. Then the Lord said to Abram, "Know for certain that your descendants will be strangers in a foreign country. They will be enslaved and oppressed for 400 years. But I will execute judgment on the nations that they will serve. Afterward they will come out with many possessions. But as for you, you will go to your ancestors in peace and be buried at a good old age. In the 4th generation, your descendants will return here, for the sins of the Amorites has not yet reached its limit." When the sun had gone down and it was dark, a smoking firepot with a flaming torch passed between the animal parts. That day the Lord made a covenant with Abram. "To your descendants I give this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates River, the land of the Kenizzites, Cadmonites, Hittites, Perizzites, Rephaites, Amorites, Canaanites, Girgashites, and Jebusites." So, you had Abram and Lot living together, but their possessions were too much, such that the animals of their flocks didn't have enough food if they were together. So they split up, and Lot went east over the Jordan, and Abram went to the oaks of Mamre in Hebron, and Lot went to Sodom. And then you have this War of the Kings. So you've got 4 kings allied against 5, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah, who were in the group of the 4, were defeated and led captive. And Abram went and rescued his nephew Lot and the rest of the captives from this pillaging. And he subsequently gave an offering to this Melchizedek, who was both king and priest. And then you have this promise of a son and promise of the land that he's in from God to Abram. And it's sealed with this covenant, which I believe the covenant system employed here is a suzerain treaty. Which was a somewhat common treaty in the Near East. Yeah, a suzerain treaty is between a greater and a lesser party. The greater party provides benefits such as military protection and land grants to the lesser party, that is, the vassal. Um, but contrary to how normal treaties were done, so in this particular case, you have the animals being split in two and forming somewhat of a path for the two parties to go through. And then the two parties would walk through that path together, basically signifying, if either one of us breaks this treaty, then let us be like these dead animals to our side. But in this case, Abram didn't go through the path, but it was only the Lord that went through the path, thus signifying that it wasn't what the covenant was not contingent upon Abram, it was contingent upon the Lord. So also, you have this Melchizedek, who's king of Salem, that is, king of peace, mentioned in Hebrews as being a prototype or archetype of both a king and a priest, in the same way that Jesus is both king and priest. That is, you don't have, after the establishment of the priesthood, the Aaron priesthood and the Levites, you have the Jews continuing to look for something in that same pattern. But here you have in Genesis, for the Messiah, but here you have in Genesis somebody who was both king and priest, who was greater than Abram. That is, Abram gave him a tenth of the spoil. Yeah, and in that same way, Jesus serves as both king and priest. So, the book of Hebrews basically makes that same argument that Jesus, not only being our priest, is also our king. So, yeah. Also, this kind of tells me that Sodom had a reputation prior to the incident in which it was destroyed, because Abram was very, very reluctant to take any of the stuff from Sodom. That is in 14:21. Then the king of Sodom said to Abram, "Give me the people, and take the possessions for yourself." But Abram replied to the king of Sodom, "I raise my hand to the Lord, the most high God, creator of heaven and earth, and vow that I will take nothing belonging to you, not even a thread or the strap of a sandal. That way you can never say, 'It is I who made Abram rich.'" So that's not the sort of response that you would give to a neutral or friendly party, shall we say. Carrying on, Matthew chapter 5, verses 27 through 48. "You have heard that it was said, 'Do not commit adultery.' But I say to you that whoever looks at a woman to desire her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. It is better to lose one of your members than to have your whole body thrown into hell. If your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. It is better to lose one of your members than to have your whole body go into hell. It was said, 'Whoever divorces his wife must give her a legal document.' But I say to you that everyone who divorces his wife, except for immorality, makes her commit adultery, and whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Again, you have heard that it was said to an older generation, 'Do not break an oath, but fulfill your vows to the Lord.' But I say to you, do not take oaths at all, not by heaven, because it is the throne of God, not by earth, because it is his footstool, and not by Jerusalem, because it is the city of the great king. Do not take an oath by your head, because you are not able to make one hair white or black. Let your word be yes, yes, or no, no. More than this is from the evil one. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist the evildoer, but whoever strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other to him as well. And if someone wants to sue you and take your tunic, and give him your coat also. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. Give to the one who asks you, and do not reject the one who wants to borrow from you. You have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemy and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be like your Father in heaven, since he causes the sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Even the tax collectors do the same, don't they? And if you only greet your brothers, what more do you do? Even the Gentiles do the same, don't they? So then, be perfect, as your heavenly Father is perfect. Pretty high calling. Perfection. Yeah, and it's only one that we can, it's only one that we can work towards with the power of Jesus. So, for as many times as I've read this 545, I had somehow divorced it from the context that it was surrounded by. So that you may, in 544, but I say to you, love your enemy and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be like your Father in heaven, since he causes the sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. As God sends rain on both the righteous and the unrighteous, so too we should pray and love those who do both good and bad to us. So, like non-discriminatory rain clouds. Yeah, and I don't think Jesus is advocating for bodily dismemberment here in 529 and 30, but rather, if even if something is very, very precious to you, like an activity that you do with people that's bad, like if you're part of a gang or something, and can hurt losing community, but if it causes you to sin, it needs to be removed from your life. Also, just reading Mere Christianity lately, and he talks about divorce and how, various Christian sects are in disagreement as to the permissibility or non-permissibility of it, but they're all in agreement that it's more like the severing of a limb than like dissolving a business partnership. Yeah, and I think this next part about don't make oaths at all. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. It's like a stupid game of Simon Says. If people can only trust you if you swear by something. Simon didn't say. Oh yeah, and this 539, I say to you, do not resist the evildoer, but whoever strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other to him as well. I think some people unfairly take this as any retaliation is unlawful according to the Bible. But even in this particular example, it's not as though the blow being dealt is one that's intended to kill, but merely to insult. And the idea, I think, then, is that bear with insults. Don't feel like you have to retaliate against insults. Yeah. And I think the surrounding verses provide that same context. If someone wants to sue you and take your tunic, give him your coat also. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. From what I've heard, since Israel was under Roman occupation at the time, I think there was a judicial ruling that soldiers could conscript anyone to make him carry something for up to 1 mile. And this is saying, hey, go the extra mile here. So, cool. Psalm 6, verses 1 through 10. Lord, do not rebuke me in your anger. Do not discipline me in your raging fury. Have mercy on me, Lord, for I am frail. Heal me, Lord, for my bones are shaking. I am absolutely terrified. And you, Lord, how long will this continue? Relent, Lord, rescue me. Deliver me because of your faithfulness. For no one remembers you in the realm of death. In Sheol, who gives you thanks? I am exhausted as I groan. All night long I drench my bed in tears. My tears saturate the cushion beneath me. My eyes grow dim from suffering. They grow weak because of all my enemies. Turn back from me, all you who behave wickedly. For the Lord has heard the sound of my weeping. The Lord has heard my appeal for mercy. The Lord has accepted my prayer. May all my enemies be humiliated and absolutely terrified. May they turn back and be suddenly humiliated. And finally, Proverbs chapter 1, verse 30 through 33. Continuing on listening to wisdom. They did not comply with my advice. They spurned all my rebuke. Therefore, they will eat from the fruit of their way, and they will be stuffed full of their own counsel. For the waywardness of the simpletons will kill them, and the careless ease of fools will destroy them. But the one who listens to me will live in security, and will be at ease from the dread of harm. Those who spurn wisdom will eat from the fruit of their way, that is, suffer the consequences of their bad actions, and they will be stuffed full of their own counsel, that is, hear just what they want to hear. Echo chamber and Proverbs here. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me today. Hope you have a great day. Bye.